Welcome everyone to the StarLadder I-League Hearthstone StarSeries Season number 3. I am D2. With me is Firebat. And Firebat, I know you've been super busy doing God's work with the EU versus CN series, but how are you doing?
Pretty good, yeah. Just finished a solid 7.5 hour cast. Power ate some macaroni and cheese and ready to go once again. We got two great players here, BunnyHoppor, DrHippi. It is a bit of a team kill to start off the tournament, which is a little sad. Both representing Team Virtus Pro, both very strong players.
Yeah, it was eventually going to happen at some point, right? Since they're in the same group. And as if you guys do not know, this is the format of this tournament is there's a group stage for the Worlds and for the Chinese side of things. This is the Worlds, obviously. You can check out all the information about this tournament over at starladder.com. Or actually, I shouldn't say the whole URL. It's somewhere. You can find it. Go to Reddit. I sort of went down that rabbit hole, but anyway, go to Reddit. It's sticky there. Anyway, the point is that there are two groups, Group A and Group B, great players in each side, and the top two from each group go to the offline finals in Kyiv, Ukraine, from June 9th to 11th. And there's 5 spots for the world. So how does the 5th person get determined? The 3rd and 4th player from each group get put into the last chance tournament, and they battle it out to see who can be the last player standing. 7th, 8th in each group are eliminated from Star Series altogether. They may be invited in the future, but no guarantees. And 5th and 6th, they save their spot for future Star Series. So that is Star Series in a nutshell, Firebat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you at least get invited back if you do kind of okay. Like if you get a C average, they just throw you on for next year. That's pretty sweet. So you have to just really do poorly to get kicked out completely. And right off the bat here, some pretty standard lineups going into it. Both players with Druid, both players with Paladin. The difference between the lineups being the Shaman and the Priest, and both players banning Rogue.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is that these players do not know each other's decks,
Okay,
but because they're teammates, they probably have some sort of inkling,
sure.
right? And both players, they ban the rogue out, which you typically expect to be, the quest rogue. I actually do have the deck list. I'm not sure if you have them. Do you want me to spoil it for you or
No,
not?
no, 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 no. I want to get inside the mind of the player, and like if I know the cards, and I could say like this is the best line because I know the cards, but they don't know the cards, so I have to be like this is what they think the best line is based on the information that they've seen so far.
All
That's
right,
more
so
fun.
I can be kind of the guy behind the scenes, and you can be the person like looking at the whole cam essentially, and playing from the view of the player. But getting into the first game, it's going to be Paladin over here on BunnyHoppor's side, and for Hippie, going to be the Jade Druid.
Right.
Now, what do you think about this particular matchup?
Well, oftentimes the Jade Druid's trying to ramp in mana, they're trying to ramp in Jades, and during the time when they're doing these things, they're not really influencing the board at all. And that lack of influence to the board allows Murloc synergies to activate, allows the Paladin to snowball. So I'd say it's Paladin favored, probably like 55-45 though, because Innervate's a card, and it can allow you to do some wacky stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Jade Druid never really out of any particular matchup, particularly if they draw what they need to have. Dr. Hippie has one of the best cards that in Jade Druid's arsenal, which is Jade Blossom. It's kind of like Wild Growth and Jade Isle all packed into one card, but maybe even a bit too slow here.
Right. You usually want to get something a little bit faster against the Murloc Paladin, especially if they're able to have one of these starts where they just get the one drop on one, buff it up with the Rock Pool Hunter. It can be pretty deadly pretty quick. So not a lot of options here for Hippie. And if a Rock Pool comes down, he could just get snowballed right out of the game. But he is going to poke that minion just so he can start working on it to maybe set up a swipe if things start going in his favor.
Oof, wow. And yeah, fireworks here on the side of BunnyHoppor. I was about to say that, even with the Rockpool Hunter in hand, because he has the Primordial Drake, which isn't always seen, you're looking at a bit of a slower list. So, even if BunnyHoppor kind of springs onto the board this quickly, Dr. Hippie perhaps has a chance with a double ramp in hand, but this is starting to get out of control.
Yeah, and he's even got the Coin Spike Ridge Steed a little bit later on down the line to kind of seal things out. So Hippie's going to need to have very powerful plays, and all he's going to be doing right now is playing a 1/1 because he's got 2 Jade Blossoms in his hand, and you got to imagine he's getting one out there trying to ramp his mana, and this is where that whole not interacting with the board and trying to have powerful turns later can run you into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting how the Jade mechanics work for each particular, class that has those Jade mechanics. When you're talking about the Shaman, they react to the opponent's board while putting Jade on the field. And Druid, they prepare for future turns by having this crazy amount of mana, but right now it's not really helping out for
Yeah,
or helping out DrHippi.
need to invest in now, not the future. But looking at BunnyHoppor's hand, he's got two really distinct options. One is the Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. The other is the Murloc War Leader. The War Leader allows him to put on a lot more pressure quicker, making it so that if DrHippi attempts to develop a minion, he would get punished further. The Wicker Flame Burn Bristle puts on way less pressure now, but if DrHippi is looking to use a removal spell, he won't be able to get as much value out of it. So going into the turn 5 of the Druid, I prefer the Wicker Flame Burn Bristle, as the current variations of Jade Druid run 0/5 drop, so they're almost always looking to remove minions on this turn.
Yeah, definitely. And something like Swipe just is really not that great. Even Wrath in this situation, unless you're pairing it with, if DrHippi, for instance, picked up a Wrath off the top to pair with a Jade Blossom, then you're in business. But, it's as BunnyHoppor, even if they have the perfect hand, it's not really that punishing. And, it's unlikely they have the perfect hand, which in this case is basically Jade Blossom and Wrath, which is like, just okay.
Right. Now, like, DrHippi, he wants to remove these minions, but he doesn't have good ways to do it, so he's probably just going to ramp up, and BunnyHoppor can then put pressure on with the War Leader that allows him to take value trades, so he gets immediate value out of the card before it gets removed by DrHippi, and he gets to play it on his turn 4, threatening to go into Coin Spike Ridge Steed. So forcing your opponent to have to deal with a War Leader allows you the time to get the Spike Ridge Steed out, and you can even almost like get it out on the Wicker Flame, which is even better than one of the other cards.
Yeah. As scary as this looks for DrHippi, though, there's a bit of pressure now onto BunnyHoppor, right? Because DrHippi is going to have 8 mana next turn. That's so insane. And BunnyHoppor's thinking, if I let him, even with Tyrion in hand, even with Spike Ridge Seed, even with Primordial Drake, if he goes, gadgets in, gets a bunch of armor, and then starts throwing massive Jades in the field, all of a sudden you're actually losing. So a tiny bit of a clock here for BunnyHoppor to try to kill him.
Sure. The one thing he's thinking about, seeing your opponent ramp immediately to 8 is Primordial Drake. You want to try and make sure your board is not in a position where it gets blown out by the deal 2 to all the battle cries. He's probably going to play War Leader, trade in with the 4/3, or maybe just trades in with nothing. Okay. It's a little bit
weird. You could trade in with
Drake.
Wicker Flame.
See, I don't like trading in with the Rock Pool, as it gives Primordial Drake some additional value, but it's like, it's not the biggest amount of value in the world. So I guess he's kind of taking a halfway stance here, where he doesn't want to make his minions vulnerable to swipe by setting it down to 1 health. But if Primordial Drake comes down, it gets a little bit of extra value, but he's like, I don't care. Primordial Drake's not that good of a play for you anyway.
Yeah, and also it could be, not all lists are running Primordial Drake potentially, and perhaps they're running, I know, having looked at their list, they have some crazy stuff in there. I haven't looked at DrHippi's list particularly, but could be something that, being teammates eliminates. But speaking of which, DrHippi picks up a second gadget, and not exactly what he wanted to see here. Swipe again isn't that great. Aya's, always pretty reasonable, but you're taking a lot of damage on the backside.
Right. Yeah. Aya's another Jade card. It's a bit more proactive than some of the other ones. You got to put a lot of bodies on the board. It takes time for the Death Rattle to really cash in and allow you to start reclaiming the board, but that's the only play he's got. You can't expect to draw 3 cards and find an answer to this unless you got a Yogg-Saron you're looking for, and even then you need Yogg-Saron Innervate. So he needs to put something out there that puts pressure on BunnyHoppor's board and tries to contest it, and BunnyHoppor's just gonna maybe even just Aldor that stuff and punch him in the face. Double Aldor looks very appealing as ways to react to this board.
Yeah, definitely, especially because the Aya has a hard time even killing itself. Looking at just damage on the board, what are we looking at here? 10, 13, 14, 15. So kind of close, but not super close to lethal here for BunnyHoppor. Look like he's going to make a big Wicker Flame, or at least he was going to.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first instinct prior to the pickup of the second Aldor. With the second Aldor pickup, the highest possible tempo play on this turn is double Aldoring. You lose a little bit of value in the sense that Aldor is a more flexible card than Spike Ridge Steed. So that's one of the reasons maybe why he goes for Spike Ridge Steed. And you also lose a bit of value in the fact that you're kind of Aldoring some crummy minions. So that you're not getting the full battle cry effect out of the minion. So he does end up taking a little bit less tempo route. It allows him to have a little bit stronger turns down the road, which I'm not sure if I totally agree with. I think just going all in there is pretty reasonable. Opponent's almost dead.
Yeah, what do you think about this trade here on the Aya? Kind of giving your opponent a bit of win fury right here.
He wants to get value out of the bubble before a swipe comes down or a hero power can pop off the bubble. So he's looking to try and play around the Druid's ability to gain life very effectively. He's not really concerned about rushing DrHippi down as fast as possible. He's concerned about getting a board that's resilient to do damage over multiple turns because he's afraid of Feral Rage for armor or Earthen Scales sort of things happening that could really ruin his board position. So he plays heavily around this swipe that DrHippi just used now.
Oh yeah, swipe has to go onto the War Leader just so that DrHippi doesn't die here, and looks like he's gonna go ahead and do the good old draw last, and he smiles about it. But he's gonna be a pretty low life total at the moment, looking at 8 damage, or excuse me, 6 damage on the field and 10 damage on his own life total. And Sunkeeper Terran leaves BunnyHoppor 1 damage off lethal at the moment.
Yeah, you do it. Yeah, you set him to 1. It puts a 3/7 out there, heals some of your minions outside of AoE range, plays around Primordial Drake, plays around Swipe. It's just a really good tempo, value, everything play. Obviously, you could try and save it to react to Giant Jades better, but what are they going to do? They're at 1 life, and it plays around Yogg, too. Like, it hits all your bases. I can't imagine him going with any other play here.
He can also just go for double Aldor, I suppose, and then you basically guarantee lethal next turn with Sunkeeper because he has to put some big minion down on the field as well as, you know, heal up or remove their opponent's board. But either way, it looks like he's probably going to take this. I'm going to see the Jade Behemoth come down as well as the Feral Rage. Will this keep him alive is the question.
It's going to keep him alive on board. And unless he gets a top deck here, he will survive this. You're looking for True Silver off the top to kind of close it out, or Consecrate as well, because it can kind of double dip the damage. Actually, there's nothing that does the help he trades in, so just True Silver, but BunnyHoppor doesn't find it.
Well, BunnyHoppor has a way to kind of sort of, you know, fill out his curve with an Aldor Peacekeeper, Hydrologist, and Hero Power. Other than that, he's looking at maybe double Aldor just to get, again, some power onto the board, and you're going into Tyrion anyway, most likely next turn, or the Primordial Drake. This is kind of annoying for BunnyHoppor. He really just wants to finish this game out, but probably going to do so anyway.
I like the double Aldor. I like it. It plays around Yogg the best because you put the most garbage on the field. You just try and kill your opponent. If anything lives, you get there. So it's the best play around Yogg Saron, and Druid just has a really hard time recovering giant board states like that. Plays around Earthen Scales because Earthen Scales on a 1-attack minion only gains you 2 life.
All right, well, since we are playing from the perspective of BunnyHoppor, and BunnyHoppor doesn't really know if he has Yogg or not, but at this point, I think it's okay to let everyone know that DrHippi actually does not have Yogg in his deck. So,
okay.
Unfortunate. Unfortunate for DrHippi. Maybe BunnyHoppor thinks it's in there, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go digging here. If you're DrHippi, can't even play the Gadgeting quite yet. Has to go for the Vandal because it's a bit cheaper. Let's see if he can't pick something. Not going to be enough Primordial Drake, a bit too late. And BunnyHoppor is going to take game number 1.
Yeah, it's kind of the expected result, Paladin versus Druid there. It's not as clear-cut because Druid often does crazy stuff, but generally speaking, the Paladin's going to get the W there. Not really that important of a win in the series. Like, in Conquest, a lot of times the weakest deck is the one that's the most influential if it gets a win. So we're looking at, like, the Shaman and the Priest being the decks as going to be the ones that'll decide everything.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now that BunnyHoppor's Shaman is very interesting.
Okay.
You're going to get a kick out of it.
Is his Druid the token Druid?
His Druid is not token Druid.
Okay, that is interesting, because one of the ways you can kind of build a Conquest lineup to really target out one of the most popular decks in the metagame right now, which is Druid, is bringing token Druid, because that beats Jade Druid, the mid-range Murloc Paladin, because that beats Jade Druid, and most variations of, you know, early board control Shaman, just because of the power level of Manatide and Flame Tongue and how difficult they are for Druid to deal with, can generally beat up on Druid as well. So that's what I was kind of expecting, seeing the classes. But yeah, I guess interesting Shaman decks. It's a kind of like next to Warlock as far as the tier lists are concerned. So it's really curious to see it come out.
Yeah, so what do you think about this? I'm gonna ask your opinion. I already know what the deck looks like. So what is
some
Karen
sort of N'Zoth Shaman, probably Ancestral Spirit, maybe a Faceless Manipulator, thing from below Volcano, that sort of thing.
Not quite, not quite. It's a bit of a different build, but okay. You're getting there. Yeah, the N'Zoth is correct, but I won't say anymore. This is kind of a crazy list. We'll have to see how it works out.
Hopefully, DrHippi is one of the players that makes faces when his opponent plays weird garbage.
Well, he's his teammate, so maybe he's seen it before.
Okay.
Maybe they saw it in he saw it in practice, and he made the faces then.
Sure. One of the ways that a lot of people build these kind of slower shamans is in targeting towards Paladin and giving a nod to that, because being able to hex Tyrion, being able to devolve the Murlocs, all of that sort of thing plays very well against Paladin.
All right, well, that interesting shaman is going against the Dragon Priest here of DrHippi.
Yeah. Devolving synergy cards is usually pretty good, but devolving dragons, not the greatest in the world because they don't really have on-board synergies. It's all about in-hand synergies. So it's not going to get the most value in the world having the devolve, but
it's kind of nice to deal with not, Power Shield and Cabal Talon Priest nonsense.
Sure.
I found. It does feel bad. I play a lot of Dragon Priest back before this current expansion. A bit of it during this current expansion, but yeah, when you've buffed all your guys, and you're like, okay, it's out of AoE range, and everything gets devolved, and you're like, oh, never mind.
Netherspite Historian. Very important in these kind of slow, grindy games to get huge amounts of value. Seeing your opponent totem on 2 indicates that you probably want value, and even if you didn't, you'd take Drachnid Operative, because that's just value and tempo all in one happy little package.
Yeah, it is value and tempo. Ysera is super value, so that's what he's considering right now. I don't see Skillnamer ever being the pick, which usually is when the player snap picks that one, but I don't think it's going to be the case this time. Does go for the Drachnid Operative.
Yeah, I imagine the hesitation was just because he doesn't want to give away that he has an operative too clearly. Ysera is nice in some matchups, like against Druid, but Shaman has Hex. They have tools they can use to answer it, and especially if it's a really slow Shaman with the N'Zoth Ancestral Spirit, sometimes they have Faceless, and Faceless Hex your Ysera is backbreaking.
Yeah, and you might as well just play a 5/6 like Hex anyway, right? If you're going to just do that for 5 mana.
Right.
Well,
it kind of is a self-correcting choice, because if you're playing against a control deck that's trying to outvalue you, you discover a card from their deck, you take a value card. So it's a 5/6, which then takes a huge value card from their deck. If you're playing against an aggro deck, you play a 5-mana 5/6, which takes a very fast tempo card because you're playing against aggro. So you can really never go wrong, and it's super powerful to take it the earlier on in the game it is.
Yeah, well, DrHippi kind of has a decision here to go for a bit of a stronger minion in the Twilight. Actually, he has a few options here. He can go for, or 4 actually, I see. If he goes for Cabal Talon Priest, he can go for the Tar Creeper just to be annoying. He can coin into Twilight Drake, which is kind of, it's like just okay. It's a 4/7, I believe. And other options go for the Priest of the Feast, which is just another annoying big minion, but gonna go for the Twilight Drake this turn, which contests the Stonehill Defender.
Okay. Really just wants to be fighting for that board super efficiently. He's afraid of the heal effects, right? I don't know. There's probably ways where BunnyHoppor could trade into his 1/3, then heal up the minion, and then kind of cock block and strand that Cabal Talon Priest on the field, having only 3 attack lining up against the 4, so opts to go for the Twilight Drake.
Yeah, and even, if BunnyHoppor finds a way to get this annoying taunt in front of a Manatide Totem, for instance, then a DrHippi, you're sitting there like, well, I guess I just lose. I have no way to deal with this.
Right. You have to plow down those walls. You can't let the totem forest accumulate. It becomes painful, and then you have to waste AoEs on Manatide Totems, and you die a little inside.
Yeah, just a little bit. Well, back over to BunnyHoppor. Doesn't have really a whole lot going for him. Picks up the the Hot Spring Guardian, excuse me. And yeah, it's going to go ahead and totem and thinking about perhaps the devolve here, but it feels really bad.
Yeah, he's definitely thinking about it. I mean, the 4/7 will likely turn into a 3/3. That's not that bad. And the other guy turns into a 1-drop, which you could have maybe even killed that turn. I imagine if he had gotten Healing Totem, he would have devolved and tried to value trade his 1/4 into the 1-drop. It's and he doesn't want to commit out one of his healing cards as is so vulnerable to Shadow Word Pain and overloads him and whatnot, and he needs to start discounting these Thing from Below so he can get closer to a Thing from Below Spirit Echo turn.
Yeah, and the thing about BunnyHoppor's deck is it's pretty greedy, And so he's kind of just stuck with all of his removal options here in a situation where you're playing against a bunch of mid-range minions, and you don't really want to be using those in the first place. So a little bit stuck here is BunnyHoppor, and DrHippi's going to start taking the board right now.
Galaka Crawler in the Priest, expecting some pirates.
There are 7 other players in his group, so you're probably going to be expecting some pirates at some point, and it could win you a game.
Dirty Rat. That's an interesting card to see in Shaman. Break up some of those combo decks and pull things out into your storms and volcanoes.
Yeah, he has 2 Dirty Rats in this deck, which pretty nuts.
Yet he still bans Rogue.
Yeah. Well, since they're banned, I can tell you now that the rogues from both sides are Miracle Rogues. They are not, So, and the thing is, obviously they don't know that for certain, but because, by the way, we do see the Evolve here, and pretty good pull if you're going to, wow, that's a pretty good here.
That, the Dark Fisher.
Yeah, just get some more cards, right? And Zero, it gets a potion off of it, but it's still just a 3/2, so massive stats, lowering here on the side of DrHippi.
Mm-hmm. But he did give him a Galaka Crawler activator.
That is true.
Well, you got some value trades here with the Eldward. Definitely going to want to do that.
Yeah, not a whole lot to do here with the Potion of Madness either.
No.
Typically you get some decent value out of that, especially when you're looking at a 2/6, but just no minions on the side of BunnyHoppor to run it into.
Fade Toxin, not very useful. Allows him to stealth something, but not many cards who would really want to stealth in the Dragon Priest deck.
Yeah. Actually, strangely enough, it'd be really nice to do so with Ysera on 10 if you did have Ysera, but even if that were Ysera, it would have gotten pulled anyway. Although that would have been pretty interesting, right? If you pulled the Ysera and devolved it into an 8-drop.
Tidal Surge.
2 of those as well.
It's a very controlly, a lot of healing. He's looking to try and extend the game as long as possible. Thing from Below Spirit Echo is so crazy strong later on in the game when you're able to, play whatever random minion alongside the Thing from Below because it's 0 mana, and then just get another 0 mana 5/5.
Yeah, I do like that there's at least a bit of, value in the deck toward the end. Just, obviously a bit of a spoilers there. But for instance, I casted a tournament a while ago, which was like a streamers tournament, and Eloise was playing a lineup that was completely anti-aggro. And the only issue was that she was playing the Shaman where it had double Tidal Surge, it had all these, AoE removal cards and all the removal under the sun. But at some point you have to actually play your own minions, and she just died to a zoo. Even though she's playing anti-aggro, she just died to a lot of the straight-up aggro decks from her opponent because they were able to refill over and over again, and she just didn't have all the right types of removal for every single situation.
Yeah, the same thing happened in a tournament I've been casting in EU versus CN. A lot of the players brought this N'Zoth Paladin, and it had very little ways to finish the game. It kind of just relied on playing N'Zoth to be enough, and the opposition always just developed a board that was just slightly small enough that you didn't want to clear it, and then finally they would clear it, then they would reload, and then they would clear it again and try and play N'Zoth, and then they would just keep reloading forever, and you'd never be able to get that N'Zoth out. So these reactive decks can oftentimes be the victim of those kind of floody strategies or get abused by the ability to buff tokens.
Yeah, you'd think that they would counter them, but they get countered in the end because of... Sometimes you don't always think of, opponent playstyles, right? You're like, oh, these removal cards, they match up perfectly with what my opponent can do. But then, if they're good, they'll manage to make it just annoying enough for you to make sure that they deal with it.
And that's what DrHippi's kind of doing here, just kind of putting pressure out, getting a bunch of chip damage in with this board as time goes on. And it's going to be kind of tough for BunnyHoppor to get a full clear over and over and over again, especially as this Northshire Cleric lives. He's really got to take care of that and deny DrHippi's ability to reload the board. Deny card draw.
This is just really funny with the Nat the Dark Fisher and the Northshire Cleric on both sides. They're both just like drawing way too many cards. But yeah, DrHippi does have that board. Has a lot of just removal on his side as well. And isn't committing to the Shadow Visions either. Wants to have more information in the future. Title Surge does come out, like you mentioned, to take away that card draw.
You got to do it. You got to. I've seen even like Control Warriors kind of experience this syndrome as well in the past, where they just try and remove everything the whole game. And if anything draws cards, you better freaking kill it. That's your plan. So it makes sense for BunnyHoppor to utilize premium removal on just getting rid of that cleric.
Yep. Well, it's kind of a premium removal. He's able to heal himself up in the meantime as well. Premium removal because it costs quite a bit. But DrHippi going to commit a little bit more to the board here.
All right. This is most likely because the health total on the board is so high that it kind of plays around Volcano, right? Volcano is a weird card. You have to kind of overextend to play around it. You gotta have enough on the board, but not too much on the board. It's strange. If you have too little, the AOE is better against you.
Well, BunnyHoppor does pick up even more healing, gets a card off of that, not the Darkfisher, and keeps rolling the Searing Totem. What are the odds on that? Just 3/4 times a bunch. He really wants to get that spell damage. Because just rolling out the Lightning Storm right now doesn't do a whole lot. Hasn't been able to pick up Maelstrom Portal for his sake either.
He has accumulating a bunch of healing cards that he can play with his Thing from Belows for free. He's just trying to figure out, am I going to die? Do I need to take the defensive play right now?
Yeah, this is one of the inherent weaknesses of Priest, right? They never have any burst. Just even when they're playing mid-range decks like the Dragon Priest, which is less of a mid-range deck these days, it's just kind of a lot of stats. There's no bloodlust. There's no way to kill you. So
sometimes they inner fire you.
Sometimes they inner fire you. That's kind of a different deck typically, but yeah, I suppose you do see the one of inner fire once in a while, just to make sure you have some burst at some point.
Yeah. DrHippi says he has enough time to wait, but he needs to put out a little bit of stall. So we do see the Hot Spring Guardian come out, as well as the Ooze out there, just to absorb a little bit of damage, maybe soften the board up. DrHippi has to worry about how he's trading in the minions and worry about, okay, do I have more than 15 health on the board by enough of a margin to justify that my board's good enough around Volcano? He's also got to worry about, do I want to commit even more to the board because my opponent could Lightning Storm and then Volcano, and how does that interaction pan out? If all of my units lose 2 life, do they all suddenly play into that 15 health threshold for Volcano? So navigating around that AoE can be really difficult, and he's going to try and do the best he can.
Finally gets the kill off his own, not the Darkfisher. The other thing to consider, I mean, obviously you mentioned both Volcano and Lightning Storm. I think that the way that BunnyHoppor has been insistent on rolling a totem it spells pretty clearly to DrHippi that there is a Lightning Storm in hand. So,
well, or he just really wants to do Thing from Below Spirit Echo. But
that's true. That is true.
So life total on board, 16, 17, 18, 22 life on board. So Storm Volcano would clear, but he doesn't have the Volcano.
Well, he finally has 0 mana Thing from Below for the Spirit Echo combo, like you mentioned here. And is he gonna? It looks like he's probably gonna commit the Jinyu Water Speaker as well, or perhaps what would you rather go for here?
Yeah, the Jinyu, of course. You have plenty of health behind the taunts, and you're healing for 6 this turn, and it's not really a commitment because you get it back.
Definitely. I guess there's no reason to be worried about the overload because you're not going to play N'Zoth next turn anyway. You haven't really gotten anything. Has he gotten any Death Rattles?
Not yet, but Karen's in the deck. We saw it off the mulligan. This pint-sized potion allows DrHippi to do a lot of unique things with Potion of Madness, as well as utilizing Shadow Visions to find additional Potion of Madness to steal these Death Rattles, taking away things from below from BunnyHoppor.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. How would you go about it here? This is just kind of complicated. Only have 70 seconds.
Right. It reduces the attack of the minions by 3, so that you have to trade them into something or Shadow Word Pain them yourself. So he could utilize Potion of Madness to bump... to just take it and Shadow Word Paint it, or he could just throw it into the Thing from Below after dealing a little bit of damage to it.
Yeah, if he uses the Pint-Sized Potion, the only thing that you can throw Thing from Below into is the other Thing from Below, so you'd have to bump into it first. And he's running out of time to do so.
He needs to put 3 damage into it, Pint-Sized Potion, Potion of Madness. Yeah. Doesn't look like he decides against going for it, just wants to get the Primordial Drake out there. He thinks he can get more value off it later on in the future.
gonna go ahead and use his Fade Leaf Toxin presumably on the Primordial Drake so it doesn't get Hex here.
Yeah. Good little play around Hex. Very cute.
This feels... Oh another Spirit Echo. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. I wonder what is this Pint-Sized Potion of Madness combo is really for. I don't know what is... What is he saving? What is the plan with that? That seemed like a really good opportunity to deny a 0-mana 5/5 from your opponent, which you usually take when given the chance to.
I kind of hesitate to come to this conclusion, but perhaps DrHippi was trying to figure out the best way, and he was worried about, you know, the animations and all that stuff. He's like, well, I don't know anymore. And he just like, okay, well, if I do Pint-Sized Potion and that, I might screw it up, so let's just go with the Primordial Drake.
Huh.
It's possible. Especially when the rope starts spurting. But speaking of ropes, we're going BunnyHoppor here. I think he was counting how many cards he would get in his hand if indeed all of his minions died, and he got Spirit Echo. Yeah, I'm gonna go for the Lightning Storm here. Clear up a lot of his board. And looks like it's gonna be, yeah, again, with the Thing from Below. Double Thing from Below, Spirit Echo turn. This is ridiculous.
It's not bad.
Not too bad. It could get better, you know, you can get a Karen in there as well, but yeah.
You can steal now 2 Jinyu Water Speakers as DrHippi if you wanted.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's double Spirit of Echoed.
Yeah. Which is kind of fun with the 4/5 healing it back up afterwards.
Hmm.
You also have the ability to Shadow Visions for something. We don't know if maybe he has Shadow Word Horror in his deck. Pint-Sized Potion Shadow Word Horror does clear the board.
That is true. I can go ahead and check that for you. No Shadow Word Horror, so...
Second Potion of Madness, Dragonfire Potion, there you go. That kills everything.
Kills everything, but puts it back in your opponent's hand, and it's pretty cheap. 0-mana 5/5 taunt.
You could Pint-Sized Potion, Potion of Madness, then Dragonfire Potion, and get 2 Jinyu Water Speakers. So he had the ability to take 2 of those if he wanted, but I think he's saving it for the N'Zoth turn. He has some sort of plan with Pint-Sized Potion to deny N'Zoth value. I think he knows that there's a Karen in the deck. And I think he's prioritizing saving this to steal Karen, or maybe steal White Eyes, those kind of cards, so that they cannot come back with N'Zoth. He values that higher. So he's going long-term with it. He's not looking to try and close the game out because he feels like his hand's unable to do that.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. Even though the opponent's at 10 health, you know that they have healing and obviously the taunts. So going long-term, pretty interesting here for DrHippi. And... the nice thing, though, is that even though you know you're probably not going to kill your opponent, sometimes BunnyHoppor can't just sit there and do whatever he wants. He has to at least protect his health a little bit. So sometimes it makes you, make some optimal plays.
Well, he's going to need another Dragonfire Potion. I tell you what. This does not look pretty. It looks like he's playing against Quest Rogue right now. Look at all these 5/5s.
Well, there's no Dragonfire.
Oh, there you go.
BunnyHoppor knew there wasn't one in hand.
So you play the Twilight Drake.
Yeah, Twilight Drake does not take damage from it, so you can go ahead and play that guy first.
Mm-hmm.
Your Froggy has to bite the dust, though, unfortunately.
He lived a good life.
Pretty short, I don't know. It's pretty short, it's like a half turn.
He got to experience White Eyes and Double Thing from Below coming out against him.
He's seen some things.
Yeah, he's crapping his pants right now. He's ready to go. Like, when
like,
you're an 0-1 frog, 15 power is not for you. That's not a good day.
He's like, let me just die via the Dragonfire Potion. I'll take the Friendly Fire.
Exactly. He's like, that'll be way less painful than just getting mauled to death by White Eyes and Thing from Belows.
Well, BunnyHoppor in an interesting situation. He can call back 1 White Eyes, which isn't the worst value ever. You get 10, 12 in value out of the N'Zoth. Otherwise, you're kind of having a weak turn here.
I am fairly certain that BunnyHoppor has played more 5/5s this game than the average Quest Rogue player plays.
Well, typically Quest Rogue just wins the game at that point, right? Because they charge.
Yeah. But he's played like 6, 7. I don't know. He's about to play his 8th.
Good.
Yeah, I think you go with the N'Zoth. I feel like the longer you wait on this, it's going to get just more and more difficult to play. But he's going to decide against it. He feels like he can wait for the Karen. He can eke out that extra value.
Is it he thinks he can wait for the Karen, or does he think that he needs to wait for the Karen because otherwise this game is just gonna be outvalued by DrHippi?
Okay, yeah, I guess that could be true as well. He doesn't realize that DrHippi's hand is just garbage. No value whatsoever in there. But he's hoping to find something off this powerful shield. He doesn't even have a dragon in hand to activate dragon synergies, so a lot of the cards that would seem to be great value cards are actually a little bit sad.
Like that one.
Like that one, yeah.
It's a 5-mana 5/6, which actually doesn't seem so. Actually, it's a normal standard card. So even if that's how good Draconid Operative is, right? You try to kind of rag on it. It's like, oh, it's just a 5-mana 5/6, doesn't do anything. It's like, oh, that's actually not too bad.
Yeah, it's a Pit Fighter, which is a card that does not see any competitive play, but almost sees competitive play. Yeah, so it's a good card if you're free to play. I don't know.
Very, very true. Well, BunnyHoppor, let's see what he can pick up off the top here, or is he forced to play this off? Well, there's a thing from below.
All right, the 8th 5/5 of the game for 0 mana. Or they haven't been all for 0 mana, but a lot of them been 0 mana. There were 2, and then he copied them and played 2 more, and then he copied those, played 2 more, and then he's played a White Eyes for...
Wait, I'm confused. How did he get the first 2 then?
Stonehill Defender.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You had 2 every time of those. Okay.
That's one of the cool parts about the deck. It utilizes the Stonehill Defender to get more things from below for then your Spirit Echoes to make more 0 mana 5/5s. It's pretty cute.
I would say so. Well, looks like we're going for more totems here. He's going to go for the full package. Make sure to get that taunt totem in there.
Yeah, the value pack of totems, all 4.
He could have tried to go for double spell damage.
Yeah, he could have. He wanted the taunt.
Ooh, that is a really good pickup, because now he gets a dragon and he gets something to activate his Draconid Operative. This is the crazy synergy between these 2 cards, right? They just discover off of each other.
Mm-hmm. You've seen 1 hex used. I'm inclined to say 12/12s are big.
They are pretty big, especially in this game.
Oh,
and Stonehill Defender as well. I don't think does he need Volcano? Maybe he needs Volcano. But Stonehill Defender, what can you get with Priest? What taunt in there in Priest?
There is the 2/6. Rathion's not bad in Dragon Priest. You may hit some dragons and get additional draw alongside it.
He goes for it.
Yeah, because he has the board control, he doesn't feel he needs Volcano. He thinks he keeps pressure going.
So that Nezprite Historian allowed him to get a dragon, which allowed him to discover something else off the Dragon Operative, which discovered a card that draws cards.
Right. Talk about value.
That's one of those turns where you're BunnyHoppor and you kind of look down like, geez, what just happened? Well, except a dirty rat, but your opponent, knowing seeing DrHippi's situation, you're pretty scared of Dirty Rat right about now, because he probably took the biggest dragon possible and the biggest taunt possible.
He could have taken the Draconid Operative, though. Then you can deny the Battlecry by playing it out. But now he's going to be playing N'Zoth here, which is confusing, because if you're going to just commit N'Zoth now without getting the extra value out of it, then why didn't you do it when the board was a 10th this size? I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But he feels it's desperate enough now that he's going to take this giant push, try and stop DrHippi from being able to develop additional minions, try and kill him, I guess.
At least there's even more value here for DrHippi. So, yeah, I think obviously if BunnyHoppor could go back in time a few turns and change the way he played this out, he probably would have gone for N'Zoth a bit earlier. But kind of has to go for it now. And you can't really blame him too much, I would say, just because, look what DrHippi just drew. The Elise was going to eventually outvalue him, and
sure.
I suppose this wasn't, even double Storm Guardian wasn't going to be enough.
Yeah, he's taking a risk there to try and get more N'Zoth value, and it just didn't pan out for him. He thought maybe he could stall with the Volcano a little bit longer, but the high health total of Priest minions just navigates so well against Volcano.
What is Elun's will?
Well, this does leave an interesting board here for DrHippi. Let's see how he goes about it. And he still does have the Pine-sized Potion and the Potion of Madness.
Finally comes out. He's going to take a White Eyes. He was.
He needs to attack into it first.
Yeah, he attacks into it for 4 first, and then he can take it and trade it into the other minion.
Except
He's gonna give him a 10/10. He doesn't want it.
who needs 10? Who needs 10/10s, right?
I'm inclined to believe the Potion of Madness is not going to get that much value ever again.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
I think that's a little sloppy there, allowing your opponent to have 2 10/10s in their deck now instead of them having 1 and you having 1 at just the cost of a Potion of Madness.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you here on this one. I'll try to play devil's advocate for a moment there. Perhaps chat can help us out, but yeah, I think probably having 10/10 in your deck and deny it for your opponent. Because if you think about it, maybe he's thinking of some sort of lethal with Potion of Madness in the future, but denying your opponent from having a big fat 10/10 taunt in the way is one way to have lethal.
Yeah, you just literally cut their odds of finding it in half. He doesn't have a death in hand and he's already used one, so it's not all that likely he finds the second.
Well, that all said, he's still in an amazing spot here. BunnyHoppor doesn't have a whole lot to do. He can go ahead and Volcano, but he'd still be facing down a big board afterward. I suppose if he Volcanoes now, he doesn't really kill everything, but he might be able to get a Hex off the top, for instance. But just going to play the Title Search right now while he's doing this. And Dirty, let's see what this pulls.
Oof, lost the 50-50.
Yeah.
You're going to want to hit the other one.
Yeah, the other one has a Battle Cry, and it's way, way smaller. And it doesn't take their entire turn to play.
Is that lethal? 17, 21, 23, lethal. So with the Potion of Madness that he saved, he has found lethal. So it all works out in the end. Trade both the 1/1s into the 0/2, Shadow or Potion of Madness, the Dirty Rat, and chuck everything at his face.
Yeah, seems good to me.
I do like winning the game.
19. Are you sure that's lethal? 17.
I haven't slept in 3 days, so maybe not. But 12 plus 5 is 17. 17 plus 4 is 21. 21 plus 2 is 23.
Yeah, alright, well, looks like he sees it now. He's going to go for the lethal. Exactly lethal this time. Saving Potion of Madness working out in his favor. Didn't want to use that for a 10/10. Who needs a 10/10 and we can just win the game? And DrHippi's going to tie it up.
Tied up 1-1. The Priest getting a win over the Shaman, and that's an important matchup right there. That's the biggest deal matchup out of this set, because these are the weaker classes if you just look objectively at the classes in general. Priest and Shaman are just slightly on a lower power level than the other classes, so you can expect them to more likely be the problem deck in the set. As well as the fact that this Shaman is so reactive and so control-y, I can't imagine it having an easy time against Jade Druid, and I can't imagine it having an easy time against mid-range Murloc Paladin, just because mid-range Murloc Paladin and Jade Druid have just so much flood, and everything they add to the board's a threat. Like, the Jade tokens grow indefinitely, so it's really hard to remove them indefinitely, and it's really, really difficult to stop all of the Murloc Paladin tokens, because eventually they start getting buffed by things like Gentle Megasaur or whatever. So they'll be 1/1s 1 second, and then they'll just hit you for 20 out of nowhere. But,
yeah, absolutely. The issue here, so I don't know what BunnyHoppor was expecting after DrHippi, but we are going to be seeing actually the N'Zoth Paladin here from DrHippi, and you were not a big fan.
No,
just based on your analysis earlier.
I casted a 7-day long tournament, right? And during the entirety of the 7-day long tournament, N'Zoth Paladin peaked at 30% win rate, and its total win rate for the tournament was 20%. So it was a very big problem for a majority of the players in the tournament. And this wasn't a small sample size either. This was a 16-man event where I think 7 out of the 16 competitors brought N'Zoth Paladin. And
all right, I'm gonna try to play a little bit of devil's advocate. Is there any way that, because I know N'Zoth Paladin is kind of big in the Chinese meta, perhaps that players were specifically bringing decks to counter it, or is that not the case?
That wasn't the case. There's a lot of people using N'Zoth Paladin to target Taunt Warrior was their strategy, and it's just the N'Zoth Paladin's inability to pressure the opponent and inability to close out the game just continually caused issues in the fact that decks would just eventually find ways to beat N'Zoth Paladin. Like, N'Zoth Paladin would be killing it for the first, 20 turns of the game. And then they just could never close and eventually died. So it's really tough to outlast a Jade Druid forever.
I actually did a bit of a volunteer cast for the event, for the qualifier for the EU versus CN event, which is basically the same tournament that allowed players to qualify for the HGT Spring from China, right?
Sure.
And I think it was like, what was it? Trunks, Dog, Dog.
Yeah, and how did Azoth Paladin do?
Well, that's what I was about to get to, right? Because if I don't understand really the point of bringing it to counter Taunt Warrior, because we saw so many of those matchups, and it really came down to a lot of factors, and a lot of times the Taunt Warrior was just able to win anyway. So
yeah, there was like kind of two different builds floating around. There was the Chinese variation, which only Death Rattle was one infested Tauren and Tyrion, and then there was the European variation of Azoth Paladin, which was like 108 and 10 drops and just like the most value I've ever seen in a deck ever. And Taunt Warrior had no chance versus the European one. So the European players were attempting to target the Taunt Warrior, like Zixo and Stanudachi strategy. But I'm not really sure if that was the same with the Chinese players, because their list was extremely light and seemed way more geared towards anti-aggro. And they all ran one Hammer of Wrath to beat Spellbreaker, which I thought was hilarious, because we hadn't even gotten to that stage in the meta where Spellbender was a card that saw play.
Yeah, the only Spray Breaker I saw in the qualifier for that tournament was from Hamster. So
oh no, I meant Spellbender. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, Spellbender. Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay,
so you can't target, like, all the Paladin spells are like Blessing of Kings and Spike Ridge Steed. So you can't use them if your opponent plays a Spellbender. So you have to have Hammer Wrath in there to beat the Spellbender so that you can then play Spike Ridge Steed. Yeah.
Wow.
They're a little bit ahead of the metagame, I'd say. But anyway.
Well, it's funny because how the different metas evolve. So I don't know if it's ahead. It's kind of just like different. Like they took two different little branches. But anyway, this matchup.
Yeah, this is an expensive Fandral to kill, but you kind of want to do it. Is it worth the equality?
It's not as necessary in this particular expansion as it was in the last expansion because there's no Raven Idol. So really, you're saying, does he have Nourish or does he not?
Right. Yeah, Raven Idol's not there, but Nourish, that's a good way to lose a game, but also is wasting equality. That's not very good either. So he's going to end up taking the risk here, just playing Elise Trailblazer, and I like this. You know what? You're in an unfavored matchup. You're not going to win an unfavored matchup by playing their game plan. You have to set the pace yourself, and you got to make them have to deal with you. And
oh my goodness,
they're dealing with you. I would have liked to see Jade Idol first. Throw some Jade Idols in your deck, man. Start hitting those. But works out fine anyway. You can play the second Nourish now, and then Wrath.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I think he wants to.
He's going to be at 10 mana. His opponent's going to be at 6 mana. And he's 6 cards deeper in his deck. And he didn't lose tempo while doing it.
And he picked up an Innervate.
And he picked up the second Wrath.
So you can Innervate Wrath again. And you don't even need Gadgetzin at this point. So you're not really worried about the...
At this point, if you Innervate Wrath again, you're just protecting your Fandral. They didn't have True Silver last turn. They probably still can't kill it.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Then you can go Gadget, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, Jade Idol, Jade Idol.
It's a pretty good turn. The question, he might just Hero Power here because next turn he can go Gadgetzin. Yeah, because he doesn't really need to use the Wrath yet, and he can save it for 3. The funny thing about this, about the Jade Druid, is sometimes you get in these situations where the only real way you lose is if they have these massive minions that you can't deal with, right? Or just awkward turns, right? Where they stick something on the board, and you're about to do your Jade turn, you're about to, get these massive guys in the field, but now you can't, and they're threatening a lot of damage, so... I can understand why you saved the Wrath for a rainy day.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any rainy days. It's all sunshine for BunnyHoppor. He is on the beach in California, maybe the Bahamas. I don't know. I heard a lot of good things about there. White sand. He's having a good time.
I thought you went there.
Yeah. That's where that HCT thing was.
Oh my goodness, this is just disgusting. So
pack it up, take it home.
Gadgetzin, Raven. I'm gonna start with a Wrath here.
Why do we not start with the idol? Don't we want to draw additional idols? What is he looking for? Is he afraid of getting Holy Wrathed and wants to find more armor gain? Like, all right, now he has less odds of finding another Jade Idol. It doesn't matter. He's gonna win.
Yeah.
Buff the gadgets and health.
Yeah, exactly.
Range.
Exactly. And then you force your opponent to use an equality, and if they don't use equality, you win the game. If they do use an equality, then they don't have an equality anymore, and then you just win the game. So, yeah.
Well, theoretically, he never hits a Jade card for the rest of the game, never hits the second gadget, runs out of steam, and dies. It's a theory. It could happen.
I don't know. Well, first of all, he just picked up another Jade card, but he has Primordial Drake, and he has Burgly Bully, and he has the Jade Behemoth already in hand. So it's kind of hard for him not to find a Jade card in the next 3 turns where he's playing those cards and has something to do. I don't know.
You got to dirty man out the Jade Behemoth right here. It's got to land it.
I wonder.
If you had 8 mana, you could go Equality, Dirty Rat, Pyro, Holy Light, and then you wouldn't kill off your Dirty Rat. But anyway.
You hate to see that.
Well, you deny the battle cry.
I mean, technically, it's a positive.
Yeah. Reducing the Jade.
When your positive is giving your opponent a 4/4.
The funny thing is, if BunnyHoppor didn't go absolutely nuts on that one turn, then DrHippi had one of the few hands that you could have where you could basically tempo the Druid out of the game, right? Because he had on curve nice minions, and then he was going into Tyrion, then he had an Azah. And that's really the only way you win with this deck against, you know, the Jade Druid before they have a chance to start going crazy.
Yeah, he had the pressure, but the Jades are big now, and BunnyHoppor's drawn so many cards that he has all the answers.
Yeah, all the answers and all the questions, too. DrHippi kind of stuck here. Quality doesn't match with anything at all. Yeah, you're sitting there stuck playing Tyrion, and your opponent has a Gluttonous Ooze. Only question is, what's the best way to go about this?
Best way to go about killing your opponent's Tyrion, gaining 5 life from moving the weapon, and then continuing to tempo out with minions.
No, the math is slightly awkward, right? Because you don't have anything that trades into Tyrion very well. You don't really want to swipe in hero power, which you could do theoretically. You could swipe hero power, ooze.
Seems fine, yeah. You don't need to commit anything at this point in time.
You can throw the Jade Idol in the field because you have more in your deck.
Sure, and you already have spells in hand. You have the Innervate, you have Feral Rage to continue drawing if you find gadgets. You don't need additional spells. I feel very comfortable swipe trading in the 3/6 and then playing something. Earthen Scales works just fine. Good old swipe for burst damage. Having the Feral Rage swipe allows him to have 12 burst going forward, so that's pretty good. And sets up lethal here by, you know, a couple miles.
Yeah, I think he was counting to see if he perhaps had lethal there, even though DrHippi was at 26 with a Divine Shield taunt in the way. But this looks like it's the beginning of the end. DrHippi he still doesn't have 10 mana. BunnyHoppor has had 10 mana from like turn 1, it seems like.
Yeah, well, it was like turn 4 he had 10 mana on.
Something like that, yeah.
He's really been kicking it with the manas. Unguru, what are the Unguru cards that could save him?
Well, he's dead, so...
Okay, nothing.
Nothing. You got nothing.
It's...
Alright, well, BunnyHoppor going to take a 2-1 lead, and he has his Peculiar Shaman left, and we'll see if DrHippi can take a couple of wins against that one.
I'm going to say the N'Zoth Paladin is going to struggle against the N'Zoth Shaman, which is a sentence I've never said in competitive play before, but it's true. There's going to be a really hard time for the Death Rattles to get too much of effect and be brought back with N'Zoth. It's going to be hard for Spike Ridge Steed to get value because of the same exact reasons here, and that's double Hex, double Devolve. That's just going to shut all of those cards down, and when your deck is making half of your opponent's cards useless, you're doing pretty good.
I have one correction. There's only one devolve.
Only one devolve. Okay. Well,
So
it should be enough.
Elise could have. Okay, we're not going to get to that matchup a bit later. But one thing I do need to say is that there's no Stonehill Defender in that list there for DrHippi.
Okay. No Stonehill Defender. He doesn't want the chances to get Sunkeeper Terram or additional Tyrians. Most likely because he can't utilize Sunkeeper Terram very well. When you're the N'Zoth Paladin, you're behind a lot. So even some of the N'Zoth Paladins, let's even cut Sunkeeper Terram because it's just such a better card if you're actually ahead. So if the only good thing you can possibly get off Stonehill Defender is Tyrion, then the other 5 Paladin taunts are not useful. It's not that great of a card, so I understand it.
Yeah, the only problem is that against, again, the list that we're seeing here for BunnyHoppor, you'd like to have multiple Tyrions because you want to outlast their hexes, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that all aside here, BunnyHoppor could close out the series right now and not even get to that game 5. And we're going to see how this bizarre Shaman works against the Druid, and this is likely to play out exactly like the last game, just in reverse.
DrHippi was very greedy there. He had the ability to go Coin Wild Growth into Jade Blossom and then find something along the road to fill out his curve, but he wants to save the coin immediately there, which is telling me he wants to save it all the way for Gadget. And he's a little bit punished by it as he can now no longer just fill out the curve smoothly.
Yeah, maybe he just didn't believe in the heart of the cards, getting something off the top to fill out his curve, because this does allow him to go Jade Blossom now into Jade Behemoth the following turn, whereas before, if he went Coin Growth into... Oh, actually, no. No, he wouldn't have...
he would be going into 5, but he would have had 3 draws to do something with 5 mana. And in worst case, cycle Wrath. But, yeah, generally speaking, with 3 draws in a deck where most of your curve is below 6, you'll find something on 5.
And you saw him give a little bit of a wry smile, like, I got another Jade Blossom, maybe I should have done that, or maybe the smile was just pointed at, wow, I got all of my ramp, Nourish excluded.
Yeah, and what I'd like to see him do here is just Jade Blossom. You need this Wild Growth cycle later on. This isn't a matchup where you're going to rush him down and kill him. And if he starts going crazy on the board, you already got the Primordial Drake. You're fine. He's not going to try and rush you down.
I think he's thinking of Jade Blossom Coin Hero Power.
He's playing the Wild Growth. He was really debating whether or not he wanted to play the Wild Growth, and he's committing now to not having the Wild Growth to cycle later on with Gadget. It's 3 card draws later on with Gadget.
Yeah, it's a 2-mana Nourish with Gadget.
Right.
I don't know.
It allows him to now go into double Jade Blossom into Primordial Drake, so he can put on a lot more pressure a lot faster, but he's going to have less gas in the tank later on. So we'll see if he fizzles out or not, but it's pretty scary against a deck that's really not doing anything to invest so much into. You're throwing away 3 card draws to be more proactive, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, you kind of just need as much gas as you can against a deck like this that's continuously trying to remove your board, but let's pick up the Jade Spirit here, so he has a bit of oomph for a little bit.
Yeah, I think all of these Jade cards is fantastic. It's already on 3-3, and the next one's going to be 4-4.
Yeah, and very crucially, he's building these Jades without even using the Jade Idols. So once he gets the Jade Idols, he can almost immediately start cycling them if he so chooses. Or even if he needs a tempo, he can just play the first one as still, a Jade Golem, and then cycle the next one later. It gives him a lot of options when you're not sitting there stuck with a Jade Idol in hand. Like, do I do this now? Do I do this later? Especially if it's the second one. So, but Dirty Rat comes out, and we'll see what it pulls. Pretty good options around the board, but does pick up the largest minion. Although it does prevent its battle cry, but I think DrHippi's pretty happy with that one.
Yeah, BunnyHoppor was trying to find, pull out a minion he could storm. A little upset that it's a 4/8. That's pretty storm resilient. So now he's going to have to go with the Hex instead. But getting that out of the way, denying DrHippi's ability to clear off these totems is rather nice.
Wow, even more Jade stuff. And again, it's not the Jade Idol, so it's just... upside here from DrHippi.
Yeah, I imagine he's going to try and hold on to this coin for Gadget and just spam some Jade Spirits onto the field.
If he's worried about the Storm, perhaps he goes for Jade Behemoth and Hero Power here, or perhaps, Wrath to cycle on Jade Behemoth.
Okay, I could see maybe Wrath for cycle, but...
The Jade Spirits are nice. The bodies themselves are kind of nice for just picking up totems.
Mm-hmm. He is going to go with that Wrath for cycle. Try and develop a little bit slower so that he doesn't make himself vulnerable to Storm, like you said. And along this line, he should trade the 2/2 into the 2/6 then. Just follows through with that logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's committing to making Storm awkward.
Yeah, and in the face of default, first of all, that dies a Maelstrom Portal as well. And in the face of default, that's a 1-drop, so that guy just gotta go.
Well,
speaking of Storm...
the consequence to lackluster pressure like this is the Karen Bloodhoof. Now BunnyHoppor is not under that much pressure. He can just kind of slam that on the table.
Yeah, and then you're having really awkward trades as DrHippi.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, DrHippi, other than the somewhat slow start, considering his hand, he has, like you mentioned, gone for a bit of more pressure with the Wild Growth rather than saving it for the cycle later. So he's kind of gone middle of the road in a way.
Yeah, he went extreme pressure with how he played his mana curve, and then at the same time played slow this turn to not play into AoE. So, I don't know, he's backpedaling on himself. But Primordial Drake, now talk about a good top deck. Now you can trade in the 1/1, slam that guy down, and do some power clearing.
Yeah, like you mentioned, trade the 1/1, use your hero power, play the Primordial Drake, and then... yeah, I suppose the 3/1 just goes into the Cairn. You're leaving the Bane, and I guess go face with the Behemoth.
Yeah, there's either that or there's play all the Jade cards because they're big, which is always a great Jade Druid strategy. It's very difficult for your opponent to clear the board unless they happen to have double Storm, which we can see is a disaster, but he doesn't know the weather forecast.
Yeah, looks like he's going to go for the Primordial Drake, because you can always just slam the Jades on whatever you want. And this 4/8 is just annoying to deal with in the first place.
DrHippi knows he's in a favored matchup, and that's why he's playing so safely. He's not taking very many risks at all this game. He's taking the most conservative line almost every single time with his hand.
Yeah, and as strange as it sounds, you'd think that a lot of times you want to slam stuff on the board to pressure your opponent, but he kind of just wants BunnyHoppor to react to things one at a time because he's waiting for his Gadgetzan. Say if he just slams both Jade Spirits on the field, and then Gadgetzan comes in 4 or 5 turns, then you're kind of stuck in the next few turns, and perhaps BunnyHoppor takes the board after he's been able to clear, right? And so if he just plays one thing at a time, then perhaps BunnyHoppor feels weird just playing his own minions, which he really values if you're BunnyHoppor, because you don't want them to trade into your opponent's minions when you have your own removal, right? And then perhaps BunnyHoppor just kind of hero power passes, perhaps, and just waits for you to play more stuff, and then gives DrHippi even more time. So looks like that's what DrHippi is going for here, kind of just playing the slow game and making sure he kind of connects this turn to the turn when he goes off with Gadgetzan or Nourish.
Sure, just trying to buy time, trying to make it awkward for your opponent to go on the offensive so that you can see more of your deck, then eventually go infinite with Jades. But he is losing tempo rather quickly.
Last Guardian coming out here, but no Spirit Echo. DrHippi does have a reasonable turn here with just the swipe and clear off with the spell damage totem, which is pretty annoying. Clear off the Bane as well, play Jade Spirit, and just that middle ground, right, where BunnyHoppor doesn't want to commit AoE, but at the same time he kind of sort of has to.
I imagine we'll see him continue doing that, like as you said. It'd probably swipe hero power the Bane, ignore the spell power totem, but I'm not totally sure which way is better. Puts less damage on your Primordial Drake. Leaves the spell power totem up. They probably don't play Flame Tongue Totem. We've yet to see it from the Shaman deck, so...
If you leave the spell damage totem and your Drake is at a, what would that be, a 4/6? What is that weak to? It doesn't die to Tidal Surge.
Right.
And you have a 2/3 and a 4/4 on the board, though, so you're a bit weak to Lightning Storm plus something.
I think it's okay. If it were to set it to 4/5, I would be doing it the other way, but 4/6 is like a very ideal life total, as well as 4/4. 4/4 doesn't matter about spell power, because spell power would kill it with or without, because all the spells do 4 damage.
Well, now there's double Maelstrom Portal potentially.
That is a lot of spells. He's got like all blue cards and a blue minion. Noticing a theme.
I wonder if you could type into the search engine just blue. Give me all blue cards.
And then BunnyHoppor's deck shows up.
We
Look
did
at
it.
that.
Alright, can you roll high onto the lightning storm here? Otherwise, probably want to commit the other Maelstrom Portal. By the way, the egg's pretty nice here.
Not if you don't have Flame Tongue Totem in your deck. That's awful. What are you gonna do with the egg?
That is true. Wait, how?
He's
Okay.
got no activators for the egg.
How could it possibly die to? Oh, he's already seen double
You
primordial
have to
drake.
volcano your egg.
Oh, yeah, that is something you could do though. That is something.
Yeah, well, it's never a good situation when you're cooking eggs in a volcano. I tell you that much. That's where you know you're gone wrong in life. DrHippi, still no nourishes, still no gadget. You gotta imagine he's kind of regretting his life choices here. He had the ability to hold on to wild growth earlier on, but went for the tempo, and then gave up the tempo to try and play around AoE, and now he's out of cards.
Firebet, this is the ultimate wet noodle fight. I don't know. Well, both these players are just kind of sitting here, just slapping at each other.
Yeah. And BunnyHoppor not finding his thing from Below's to Spirit Echo, or his Death Rattles that he'd really want to Spirit Echo. He's just sitting here totem and passing. DrHippi's got no card draw. He's sitting here hero power passing.
Well, BunnyHoppor can make another 1-drop, use the title search onto the 5/5, and leave your opponent with just a, totem killer.
Sure.
Seems okay in this spot.
The board is relatively clean.
All right, both players looking for something. DrHippi picks up a Wrath. That's it can draw into something.
You're gonna cycle that for one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And a whiff. I was so ready for the Gadgetzin.
Yeah, that's not it. And you're gonna disrespect this egg because we haven't seen Flame Tongue all day from this guy, so it's probably not in there.
Nope. For BunnyHoppor, what is he looking for on his side? Probably wants the White Eyes. Oh, that's not too bad.
There we go. That's a White Eyes and a 1/4 taunt.
Yeah, let's do it. What is the percentage of class-based minions that you get?
It's 4 times more likely to get a class-based minion.
Oh, there you go. Found it.
There's like Earth Elemental and White Eyes, and that's about it in Shaman. And Elekir. All of those are fantastic.
And
you can't play the White Eyes this turn, though, because you want to guarantee it gets Spirit Echoed, so you probably just drop Halazeel because it's a 4/6.
Yeah, seems good to me. But, yeah, Thing from Below was the other one I think you didn't mention.
Oh, yeah,
So-
Thing from Below as well. I mean, all of them are fantastic. You'd love to hit any of those in this situation. Thing from Below especially, though. That's the main one you want to hit.
Ironically, the class with the actual taunt quest, obviously they run the Thing from Below, or excuse me, the Stonehill Defender, just so they get double taunts. But at the same time, you're not getting too much out of your own class taunts.
Right, they have Alley Armorsmith and Warrior. That's a fantastic class taunt. You got Public Defender, the 07. Not too thrilled about that one, though.
Speaking of not too thrilled,
Yeah.
look at this turn by DrHippi.
He tries to waste as few resources as possible while taking down the Stonehill Defender because he knows a Spirit Echo is likely to be coming out. Doesn't want that guy getting Spirit Echoed.
Hey, we found the volcano to draw a card.
You can finally cook the egg.
Alright, looks like BunnyHoppor is just counting hand space again. So if he hero powers here, plays a Spirit Echo, that's 5 minions. He has 3 cards in hand, should be fine. Oh, he also potentially draws a card off of the egg, so that would be a little bit more, but still fine. Tarkeeper. Another somewhat whiff here for DrHippi. So, is there a world in which DrHippi just whiffs for the rest of the game and BunnyHoppor is able to?
Yeah,
to kill
there's
him?
definitely a world where that happens. There are 4 cards you're looking for that are the draw engine in Jade Druid, and this happens, I'd say, more often than you'd think. A lot of Jade Druid's losses are just because they fizzle out like this. He's looking to try and hit 2 Nourishes and 2 Gadgets, and that's it. If those are all 4 of the bottom cards in your deck, you're out of luck, buddy.
DrHippi's thinking about using his mana this turn to go for the Pharaoh Rage, but I kind of like holding on to it just as, just in case. If you pick up the Gadgetzin off the top, then you at least are guaranteed to draw the number of cards that you have in your hand right now. even no matter what, even if it's just all minions off the top. So I do like holding on to it here. It's gonna take a slight beating in the meantime, though.
Okay. So BunnyHoppor should be trying to apply as much pressure as possible. He's holding back this thing from
there it
below,
is.
though. And
You found it.
yeah, this is why you want to try and apply as much pressure as possible, because you're worried your opponent could find that Gadgets and Auctioneer and start really going off and ramping the Jades rather quickly. But
So,
at the same
yeah.
time, you're afraid of Yogg.
He held back his thing from below, and BunnyHoppor runs Yogg in his deck, but DrHippi does not.
Yeah. BunnyHoppor was clearly respecting Yogg by holding back the thing from below. He wants to wait until he can Spirit Echo again after the board's been cleared to get double value off the thing from below, because currently the Spirit Echo buff doesn't stack, so you can't get there. Like if you played thing from below Spirit Echo, it would only give the thing from below a new Spirit Echo.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, DrHippi, we knew that once he started getting his card draw engine running, he'd draw into more card draw stuff. So he's thinking about whether he wants to play the Eye of Blackpaw right now, and I don't mind it, to be honest. We've already seen one Hex onto the Primordial Drake. Obviously, BunnyHoppor has some cards on the left side of his hand. It's been there for a while, but you do get the Jade Golem anyway, and then you have more draw in your hand. So it seems like a pretty decent time for it, even though you're not drawing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many cards you draw, you got to win back the board. And that's a 5-3, a 6-6, and a 7-7. And you talk about things that can win back the board, that's a hell of a lot of stats. That'll win back the board for you. It just takes some time, so you might as well get it out there and start working on that, since you do have the Nourish already in your hand. If DrHippi didn't have the Nourish yet or didn't have the second gadget, then I would respect, trying to draw more. But you got the draw in your hand. Let's go. Let's take back the board.
Absolutely. And like we mentioned, no Hex in the hand for BunnyHoppor. Not even a Devolve, even though that wouldn't be the greatest. But it would still be something to stop some of the Jades from coming out here. But I don't know about you. It's starting to look like the beginning of the end here on the side of BunnyHoppor.
I don't know what he's...
Perhaps.
Alright, so he's trying to clear with some Storm action here. I was thinking he might just reload with a Spirit Echo after trading in some of those Death Rattles and then get another White Eyes out there. But he's going to take the reaction play, try and clean up this board as best he can.
So the question here for BunnyHoppor, a little bit, yeah. The question here for BunnyHoppor is, can he either draw his way to more crazy stuff at the top before DrHippi goes out of control, which he's already started to do so, or can he find a way to finish the game out with what he has already before DrHippi can get back on?
Yeah, he needs more pressure right now. He's kicking face for 11, and that's dandy, but your opponent's playing a lot of stuff and clearing a lot of stuff, so that's going to be reduced down to 4 power really quick. And
on board, yeah.
Yeah, he needs more of a closer happening. He's going to need to find the N'Zoth, bring back multiple White Eyes. So he needs to play more White Eyes and get them killed more often.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about this turn, right? Perhaps he wanted to trade because the 10-10 Druids just have a hard time dealing with it, and you kind of want to get that train rolling as quickly as possible.
The Jades are already 10-10s now, pretty much. They're 8-8s. They're soon to be 10-10s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get the 10-10 before your opponent's stuff isn't 10-10, right? So.
Yeah. But 23 life. He's getting closer. If there's a Bloodlust in the deck or something like that, that's a really good way where you could just close it out against Jade Druid.
Yeah, I can tell you there's no Bloodlust. Not like you... I mean, if you're not running things like Flame Tongue Totem,
I'd be hard-pressed to believe there's a Bloodlust in this deck, yeah. Double Spirit Echoed N'Zoth Shaman with Bloodlust seems a bit greedy.
If I ever get the board, though.
Yeah, you're done. Post N'Zoth, the entire board of 5/5s wasn't good enough. We needed them to get up to 8 attack. For, when Taunt Warrior has 300 health.
Well, we're starting to run into the weaknesses of this deck from BunnyHoppor, right? He had all the time in the world and really hasn't found a way to finish out the game before. Jade Druid just found stuff, and DrHippi had 4 or 5 whips in a row.
Oh yeah, I mean he was just swinging at the air for a while.
He finally got it though. Finally hit that pinata or that baseball. What do you want to say?
And he's cooking the egg now.
He's getting that card. It hasn't hit the egg yet.
He said Is the egg gonna live through the volcano? I mean,
World first.
volcano fried egg, not hot enough. Can't crack the shell.
Oh my goodness.
He needs to take a cooking class. Oh, there you go.
I don't know. It seems like it would be enough, right? If you throw an egg volcano, it'll probably get there. Got a lot of animations here.
The interesting part is, how do you recover the egg from the volcano after the fact that you've cooked it?
It just springs back into your hand.
Just
fine.
springs that. Wow, just burn your damn hand off. I don't know if you've experienced magma before, D2, but
Can't say that I have. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know when you eat something too hot and it burns the roof of your mouth? This will remove the roof of your mouth.
All right, well, back to the game here. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. This is the first of 2 Jade Idols in the deck. DrHippi can just go for Fandral plus the Jade Idol now, and then all the draws are just massive Jade Idols. Though he could just decide to go for the first one as, as the Golem right now, and then knowing that you can see like the side of his deck, right? It's not very big. Perhaps he draws a Nourish, then he waits for the second Jade Idol, then he cycles that, then plays Nourish.
Right. I imagine that's what we'll see. You want to find either the Nourish or the Gadget before you shuffle into your deck. Because 1 10/10 a turn isn't very good.
Yeah, not good enough. Even for 1 mana.
Yeah, it's kind of weak. Not really what Jade Druid does. That seems too fair and balanced.
Well, this is a very sad spot for it to evolve. Might make your opponent's board even bigger.
Right.
And the 3 on the left side is turning to a 5-drop, so it doesn't feel too good right there. You can Hex.
You could.
You could. But this is what I was referring to earlier, right? It's people sometimes underestimate this, but getting all of your Jade value, your Jade ramping off of not Jade Idol is a really big deal, because now DrHippi just has a 9/9, whereas otherwise he wouldn't have had that. Unless, well, I guess he could have Fandled anyway. But I mean, Fandle aside, we're looking at the world where you don't have Fandle.
Drawing Jade cards is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the specific order, Fireback, the specific order, the specific card that he drew. I'm looking at them. I'm looking under a little bit deeper. Anyway.
It's just what happened is BunnyHoppor had a great start. He had the board the entire game. DrHippi was doing literally nothing, and then BunnyHoppor couldn't kill him. And now, when you give Jade Druid time, this is what happens. This is why you need to play decks that can kill people.
Yeah, very true.
It's just a really rough metagame for these N'Zoth fatigue decks that everybody keeps playing. But
I'm not going to fatigue the Druid.
yeah, it's impossible. That's not impossible. It's just really unlikely.
Yeah, the only way you could ever fatigue the Druid is if you somehow put exactly enough pressure where they had to tempo out the second Jade Idol.
Yeah, or you mill all the Jade Idols or something.
Something like that.
Or you just tempo them out hard enough on the board that you just kill them. Like sometimes you have those kind of curves where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 N'Zoth, you're dead. You know, that can happen.
That would be the best way to kill the Druid. I was just saying that you were mentioning that if you fatigue the Druid, it's kind of hard to do that. It's kind of hard to hit the exact right sweet spot where you put enough pressure, but you don't kill them, but you make them play both Jade Idols. Anyway, this game looks like it's over.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do here to stay alive even on board? You can go ahead and Hex.
Well, I think the highest win rate play would be to devolve that Ooze, and it hit Doomsayer, clearing the board.
Now he's going to go for it.
Yeah, you got to try it.
Gets an Elk here, gets a little 1/1.
This is a good result.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You can't really activate this. He doesn't have Earthen Scales anymore, does he?
I believe he does not. I believe both of them were used. So he's going to have a hard time making Alakir any stronger than it is, but still chooses to hex that over the Devil's Sword.
Yeah, I was just thinking how to activate the Devil's Sword. Maybe we need another egg in a volcano situation.
So many eggs going into volcanoes lately.
right, well,
This
wow,
is the end.
I saw him drawing the Innervate before I could even see the Gaddison come out of the hand. The same thing with this Jade Idol. I didn't even see him draw it yet. This is insane. And Nourish is the last card. Wow. If he Nourishes, he overdraws, even with the 3 Jade Idols in deck, which is kind of funny to think about. But Nourish is actually not too bad in the situation, because, okay, he can go for Fail Rage right now for armor, or even... could he just finish the game? No, he can't. So he can Fail Rage for armor, and then just play the 2 Jade Idols. Next turn he can cycle, and then draw, and then cycle again.
Right. He's gonna
Actually,
have
no, that...
big Jades.
Yeah, actually, no, the way I did it, the way I said it is actually incorrect. So he's gonna go about it. He just wins the game this way anyway.
It's gonna be tough to beat.
Yeah. The one issue with this play is if you don't win the game next turn, which is highly unlikely. Let's just throw it out there right now. But if it doesn't win the game right now, it makes next turn a little bit awkward because you cycle and then you nourish, but then you don't want to take fatigue, so you have to like cycle again. It's just weird. Anyway.
I think he'll be okay tickling himself with a little fatigue.
Yeah, that's true.
He'll manage. He's got 11 11s and 12 12s for 1 mana.
Yeah.
He'll be okay.
Alright. Time to cook that egg again.
Volcano RNG goes absolutely perfectly. He could live.
Could he?
For a turn.
So what would be the perfect RNG here?
Well, you'd kill the 1/1, the gadget, and the 10/10. Healing for 15, removing 15 power. Your opponent only has 16 damage in play. You're at 9 life.
Right. Nope, that didn't happen.
No, not even close.
Kill his own stuff.
This is a good old 1 in a million to lose the next turn. Now we're gonna have the N'Zoth Shaman that you just witnessed up against the N'Zoth Paladin. 2 decks that try and just kind of take the game to the extreme slow and outlast the opponent's threats, which both obviously do not work against Jade Druid because the Jade mechanic is very difficult to outlast indefinitely, but could work against each other. One of the things going for it is Shaman has double Hex, allowing BunnyHoppor to hex the threats of DrHippi that would be able to come back to life with N'Zoth. Thus, one of these players has N'Zoth and the other doesn't, basically, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, and it bears repeating, no Stonehill Defenders in DrHippi's deck, which means we're not seeing 3 Tyrians. He's not going to outlast the Hex. The Hex is going to find a good target.
Yeah. We see him keep Dirty Rat even in his opening hand. The pressure Dirty Rat. That hits an N'Zoth.
Oh my goodness.
But if it hits an N'Zoth too early, he's going to die.
Well, he has enough healing.
So one of the reasons to keep it off the mulligan is if you think your opponent's playing a Doomsayer deck, then you can Dirty Rat out a minion when they play Doomsayer. We haven't seen a Doomsayer yet, but it's always a possibility in these kind of weird shamans.
Perhaps DrHippi just wanted to have both Dirty Rats at his disposal at any point when he felt like, okay, my opponent, it feels like it's all spells and N'Zoth. You know, he's not doing anything, so let's try to pull it. That perhaps DrHippi is thinking, okay, I need this for when I need to do it at a moment's notice.
Sure. He's got a plan for this Dirty Rat. He wants it. It's one of the ways he wins the game. He has to feel like he's unfavored because his opponent has Hex and he doesn't, and that's a bummer in control mirrors. So the plan is figure out what's in my opponent's hand by hand tracking perfectly, identify the correct time to Dirty Rat, and Dirty Rat the N'Zoth. So he's just kept that off the mulligan for later use to win an unfavorable.
Yep. And this is step number 1 to BunnyHoppor's path to victory. Gets an Alakir.
It's a good high value card. He coins out the Stonehill Defender, a little risky against Acolyte decks, but the upside here that he's going for is trying to protect his own Manatide Totem. This way it cannot get True Silvered down if he plays it on curve, so I expect it to come out now and start generating value.
Yep. Who can draw the most cards off of the 3-drop here?
Right. So unless DrHippi runs Hammer Rat, there's no way he's killing that Manatide. You can see the Stonehill perfectly protecting it from the True Silver Champion.
A lot of times we see the N'Zoth Paladin mirrors, for instance, go to fatigue, but I don't not sure that this will go to that point, because I think at some point there's just going to be too much stuff on the table, and you can kind of bait out the board clears at a certain point.
DrHippi doesn't seem too concerned with killing that Manatide totem. Doesn't even equip the True Silver to try and be threatening the Manatide totem that much.
It would require 2 swings. So you're spending 4 mana and an entire card. You're also preventing your own Acolyte from getting card draw as well. And the ball comes out here for BunnyHoppor, which is kind of interesting.
He's denying card draw with the Evolve. Alright, well. You can now remove the Manatide super clean. Well, not super clean. You gotta kind of True Silver a 1/1, don't you? Or consecrate this garbage.
You can also just play an Elise and make your opponent have to barf out cards just so he doesn't overdraw.
That is a valid strategy. If your opponent has to play additional cards per turn because they're afraid of overdrawing, then if you can withstand that pressure, because you have equality clears and whatnot, you're going to get more value per card than they will. Then in fatigue, you win. So that's a valid game plan that DrHippi's thinking about. Like, long term, can I win doing that? Or am I going to just get overrun and die? Because that's also a downside when you give your opponent extra cards, is suddenly decks that aren't supposed to be able to kill you, when they have every tool in their deck, they can do pretty well and kill you.
Yeah, something's going to happen. We do see in BunnyHoppor's hand, though, he'd have a hard time getting stuff out of his hand, right? Like, the ooze you don't want to use too early. Like, say, for instance, DrHippi went for the Elise, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to play the ooze. You play the Stonehill, it brings a card back. You can play the thing from below, but you're hero powering thing from below, and then you draw 2 cards. So he actually would not overdraw, but he'd be on the cusp of doing so.
Yeah, but he feels like, I don't have equality yet, and I think that's really what's driving his decision to kill the Manatide there. He's like, I don't have equality. If my opponent just barfs their hand out and goes really hard with double thing from below or something because I gave them all this card draw, I'm going to die. So I like killing the Manatide there. He doesn't have the greatest defensive options.
Well, let's see what BunnyHoppor goes for this time. He has the option to go for thing from below right now, but okay, she's going to go for the ooze. Doesn't want to save that for, or he's going to hex the cherry. What am I talking about? Sorry, he's going to absolutely hex the Tyrion, so it feels like this is the best time to play the Gluttonous Ooze out.
Yeah. And you want to be saving the thing from below for when its cost gets a little bit lower, and you want to pair the maximum possible amount of cards you can with Spirit Echo. And then when your opponent equality clears it, you get a whole new board that they then have to equality clear, and then you Spirit Echo that one, and then suddenly that's both their equality clears.
Yeah, so we're already just kind of through theorycrafting this matchup. It's the Shaman has better answers,
Right.
than the Paladin does.
Which means the Paladin needs to kill the Shaman, because if you go answer for answer, you're going to wind up way behind.
One thing that could go in DrHippi's favor is if he just gets an amazing pack.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that,
Yeah, definitely a solid pack can really turn up the heat. You can get big minions from that, and big weapons, big spells.
well, second Stonehill Defender time to see if you can pick up something huge like last time. Another Alakir Windlord seems pretty good, and this is one of those matchups where you're allowed to just do it. Have all the fun in the world, all the time in the world. So here's the thing for DrHippi, right? We see there's no hex in the hand of BunnyHoppor. Is there any way he can, do a little bit of, sleuthing into BunnyHoppor's hand by playing a Spikereed Steed, saying, okay, at the very least he doesn't have 2 hexes because he wants to save the first hex for the Tyrion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, perhaps you start putting more pressure on and, forcing him perhaps to use the hex when he doesn't want to. And at that point, if he really, really doesn't have the hex, then you can, perhaps make that read and throw the Tyrion down later if you pick it up. Kind of a weird spot, but kind of a weird strategy to go about, but you have to take some risks.
The beautiful thing about the Spikeridge Steed here is it's going into your turn 8, which, if your opponent does have a hex, they're immediately thinking, oh, he's trying to bait out the hex for Tyrion. Maybe I'm not going to hex this. And then when they don't see Tyrion come out on 8, they have to be like, ah, you got me. And then they hex it the turn after, and it's already been able to accumulate value. So it's a very good timing for the Spikeridge Steed for that fact. Although hex might come out here simply because BunnyHoppor doesn't really have much else to do. But I imagine he's going to try and save it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, he doesn't really have that much to do. This is not really a Spirit Echo turn because you actually just don't want totems rather than a card out of your deck. You could just Dinu for not a lot of value, but yeah, that's the thing. Not hexing and giving your opponent 2 Tyrions, which is what happens when they play Tyrion and it dies and then they get another one, could be really painful.
Right, so this is all going through BunnyHoppor's head right now, and he is going to play the Halazeel, so he's not overloaded next turn, so he has the ability to potentially play Alakir if he wants, and he's going to save the Hex waiting to try and hit Tyrion, which, even though DrHippi doesn't have Tyrion, the threat of Tyrion is what's allowing his minion to stick around, which is very, very good. And now it's probably going to get hexed, because it's like, you don't have Tyrion, you got me. Now I'm going to hex it.
Well, that said, if he did have Tyrion, he would know that BunnyHoppor knows that he's not going to hex it, right? So perhaps he would still be holding on to the Tyrion in this case anyway. So perhaps maybe we even don't see the hex this time because BunnyHoppor knows that DrHippi knows that he wouldn't hex this minion here because he's waiting for the Tyrion.
All right, that's a lot of levels, but sure, I'm on board.
It seems like a lot of levels when you explain each one by one, but
yeah,
BunnyHoppor knows that Drhippi wouldn't just throw out a Tyrion here, I think.
Okay.
Even if he had it.
And then if that's the case, then this Alakir could set up a nice little storm, bump it into the 5/6, bump it into the 2/3, set up to clear this minion with storm rather than having to hex it. It's showing a lot of patience. He's only got 1 hex and he wants to guarantee it for Tyrion. He feels like that's how DrHippi wins. DrHippi needs the Tyrion, so he's going to be very reserved about it. What other plays are there? Volcano gets decent chunk of value on this board. You leave your opponent with only a 2/6. It's not that bad. For the matchup, especially, like usually you're pretty ahead as the Shaman player, so I don't know. Yeah. I like the Alakir play though, just because you got 2 Alakirs. Like, when are you gonna find time to play multiple Alakirs?
Yeah, it does seem this the best time to go ahead and do so.
Right. And it just sets up the board for your opponent really awkwardly, right? Like, they don't want to trade a 5/3 in there, so now they got to trade a 2/2 and a 1/1 in. Gets rid of 2 minions. You set up your next Alakir, which is great when Alakir can set up Alakir, and then you can bump that into it and clean it up with just the Divine Shield of the minion.
Yeah, so it looks like when DrHippi's finally going to go for the Dirty Rat here, see if he can't pull out something. And does exactly pull out the N'Zoth, and that might be his ticket to victory here.
Well, he's got a chance now. It's not quite victory yet, but he's definitely improved his position a lot. You still have to bring up the Spirit Echoes. That's what's going to be another pain for him. The fact that his opponent has Spirit Echoes that generate threats, whereas his N'Zoth is basically starts out dirty ratted because Hex comes down on Tyrion every time.
Right. Just get a little bit of value out of perhaps the Infested Torrents, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, BunnyHoppor, you can see he's running back in his, he fell back in his chair a little bit there, just thinking, okay, I had a plan, now we need to scrap that and find a different way to win. Obviously, the way that you articulated is one way, but he doesn't have, step 2 or, plan B, plan C. He now has to just make plan B the plan A and kind of shift things down his peg.
Yeah. Plan Spirit Echo. I like that. Manatide Hot Spring Guardian, thing from below, Spirit Echo, get the train rolling. Oh. Continue Water Speaker Totem. He's going to hold on to the Spirit Echo, wait for the second thing from below, maybe try and get more value. But he is slowing down the board state a little bit.
I think he just wants Wide Eyes value, actually, or perhaps even the Cairn.
Yeah. He thinks that's not enough value with those 3 minions that he would Spirit Echo, so he's waiting for one of those big death rattles, and getting one of those is going to be just extreme late game potential.
Well, not a whole lot of good stuff here for DrHippi, and so I'm going to go for the Light in the Darkness because the Consecration wasn't all that great, and doesn't get a great minion here either.
You can take Youthful Brewmaster, right? This is the highest value card by like a lot. You could even Youthful Brewmaster and N'Zoth maybe later on, but in the immediate, if any of your Battlecry minions stick, or just you want to go the max value line, you can pick up the Ivory Knight.
That is true. And the thing about the Youthful Brewmaster is your opponent's never going to expect Youthful Brewmaster, so perhaps they kill all the other minions other than the Zoth and kind of leave that up because, you know, you're kind of okay taking 5 damage, and then, oops, it's back.
Take the trade with the Elise and pick it up, maybe? I would like to see another pack put in his deck. That's how you win a value game right there. Multiple packs. Priest has taught me anything.
Alright, he's going for it. Certainly makes sense because the N'Zoth, yeah, first of all, it might not live. And even if it does, you're getting a bunch of Fescinatorns.
Right.
So, yeah, gets the Elise back here. And yeah, take it back. Take it back about not being the greatest of discoverers there. Another pack in your deck seems pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Hero power here to start off the turn for BunnyHoppor. Looks like he's choosing to Storm, trying to clean up some of this board, waiting even longer on this Spirit. He wants max value. He's not messing around here. He doesn't care how long it takes. He doesn't care how much tempo he gives up. He feels that this matchup goes to Fatigue, and he's going to win it in Fatigue and just get the maximum possible value he can out of Spirit Echo.
Even going to be healing his own Dinu Water Speaker. Not even worried about his life total. Because, again, he knows once the Tyrion comes out, he hexes that guy, and Ashbringer's not going to be hitting your face, so...
Right. Minimal Ashbringer to face connection.
Always something you need to be cognizant of.
Let me think.
I think there was a game in which I think this was in the Japan Major where I saw 7 Tyrions.
7.
Yeah.
How'd you even go about getting 7? Stonehill Defender, that can create 2 additional Tyrions, right? And then you get away Kodo it twice because of Hydrologists, which creates another 2, so that's 4. You run 1, that's 5. Where are these other 2 coming from?
The N'Zoth.
Oh, the N'Zoth, okay. So you could potentially have gotten even more. He kind of only went halfway with it.
Only halfway. Went a little bit short there, yeah. But it was just... I've never seen so many Ashbringers just go on top of Ashbringers. Like, he was trying to swing as many times as he could, but just couldn't get the swings out there.
Yeah, that's 15 damage worth of Ashbringer per Tyrion. Multiply that by 7. 105 Ashbringer damage.
Yeah, the other guy died before he got all the value out, unfortunately. But
okay, no kidding.
All right, well, are we on the Spirit Echo turn yet? And looks like we are if he's pulling White Eyes.
This is less value than we've had on previous turns with Spirit Echo.
There was more stuff, kind of, though, and it seemed like a better time. Like, perhaps he was thinking this is the best time for Lightning Storm.
Right, and Lightning Storm's not going to get any better, so let's use that here, and then we'll have the Spirit Echo whenever we want. That makes sense.
Well, this is turning into quite a value game, like we surmised at the beginning, and, you know, at the beginning we thought, you know, it was somewhat of a clock, right? DrHippi has to kill his opponent because BunnyHoppor just has more value. But because the N'Zoth came out,
right,
the value raises a bit closer right now.
Yeah, the dirty ratting the N'Zoth really changed the whole aspect of the game, and as well, getting another pack in DrHippi's deck. I don't know who wins in Fatigue anymore. Like, I don't know which deck outlasts the other deck. It's gonna be close. Templing out that Aldor, though, makes me believe DrHippi thinks he needs to kill BunnyHoppor still. He doesn't think he wins the late game value plan, because otherwise he would save the Aldor for a 10-10 or something of greater value, but instead he's utilized it here as just a body, which is definitely not the highest value you can possibly get off a card.
Yeah, not to mention picking the Divine Favor earlier, which I was going on about something else. I didn't really get to check what the other options were, but certainly he thinks that he just needs to kill his opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, BunnyHoppor's not going to commit a Volcano here. He's going to say, all right, your turn. Go ahead. And DrHippi has a lot of ammo right now.
That's for sure. He needs to start emptying his hand so that he can make use of the pack.
Just throw away your Forbidden Healing.
No. In a value matchup, I don't know.
You could heal one of your minions. Yeah, true. But I want that pack value.
You've seen a Lightning Storm. and 2 of your infested Torrents have died. You could play N'Zoth, assuming that your opponent is going to hex your Tyrion anyway.
Right.
I don't hate that. Just because, since they just used a bunch of AoE clears, maybe that's difficult to remove. I guess they still have 2 Volcanoes, though, so that's a little intimidating. Yeah, it's nothing that seems too amazing here.
Oh, he's just going to go ahead and toss away the Doomsayer.
He doesn't care about 5/5.
Is he going to toss his Forbidden Healing for a card in his deck is the question. He could toss the pack if he overdraws it, so yeah, he's going to...
Yeah, Forbidden Healing.
For a moment, I thought he pointed at BunnyHoppor's face. I'm like, you do actually heal in that case, but...
Yeah, DrHippi is fully committed to trying to tempo out BunnyHoppor at this point in time. And so he uses the Doomsayer just to be able to get all of the cards from the pack while maintaining initiative on the board. So he is very set on trying to kill BunnyHoppor. He does not believe that he wins if the game goes all the way till, you know, fatigue points, and wants to try and kill him.
All right, well, DrHippi got a lot of just, you know, medium-sized minions here on his side. Didn't get anything too nuts as far as, you know, affecting the state of the game with battle cries or what have you. Okay. Yeah.
I like that Forager guy.
What is his battle cry? It's the Beetleberries, my favorites. Or is that the other one?
I have no idea. I don't play the sound one, but it gives you a 5 or more attack cost minion.
Yeah, which turns into a rag in this case.
Liquid Membrane's not too bad. Try and make it sticky. Let's go +1/+1. That's not bad either. The removal from Shaman is 4, so with spell power it goes up to 5. So if you can get a 6/6, oftentimes it's going to stick around.
Yeah, I do like this over the Liquid Membrane just because he's really, really happy if this gets hard removed.
Sure, yeah. I mean, if it gets a hex on it, that's fantastic. You got 2 Light Lords. And they're elementals to set up for your Osric.
They are. They can turn that into a real boy Ancient War.
Yeah. Your opponent only has so many hexes, 2 in fact, so this could be hard for BunnyHoppor to stop. This is a lot of aggression coming out.
That said, BunnyHoppor, look at his hand.
Yeah, this is good Spirit Echo turn. It's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, and you Spirit Echo first before you Totem here. That's the correct order. You don't want a useless Totem rather than a card from your deck if this all gets cleared.
Right, yeah. Don't want to get overdrawn. Well, there's a lot of Light Lord value on the field.
Yeah, you can go ahead, take out White Eyes, heal that guy back up.
Yeah, I like that. I don't think there's much value in many other things. You could try and go for...
The Tortland Primalist?
Yeah, the Tortland Primalist, because it does allow you to discover a spell, and a lot of spells are one-sided, so you can get things like Consecrate or Avenging Wrath. Flame Strike, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah. The only problem is that even something like Consecration isn't that great here, so... And you're spending 8 mana, that's your entire turn.
You're right, yeah. I generally favor the Light Lord here. You got 2 of them. You open your options up for Osric maybe next turn. It gets 5 heal worth of value on a minion, which is beautiful.
Yep. One thing... interestingly, DrHippi decided to kill the thing from below, and perhaps BunnyHoppor is a bit worried about putting it back on the board since there's so many cards in DrHippi's hand. Perhaps the second equality has been drawn, but from DrHippi's perspective, he doesn't want to deal with Storm Guardians right now since he doesn't have that equality or Aldors.
Mm-hmm. Well, this Maelstrom portal looks pretty.
Tortland Primus is covering up the entire board, so we can't see what's coming.
Thanks for that, DrHippi, as he reads the card.
Look at that be our spectator, but anyway. All right, Hex comes
coming out.
I think that's the first Hex still, though, isn't it?
It is the first Hex.
Okay.
There's Tyrion remaining, and he needs to find the second Hex for Tyrion. His deck is rather thin, though.
That's just not too bad here. Let's see if he decides to trade into the 2-1, or just kind of hold on to his board a bit.
Yeah, get that out there. Even more 10-10s to your deck. He's gonna be playing a 10-10 like every turn for the rest of the game soon.
Yeah. Along with 0 mana 5/5s.
You just saw Hex. Your opponent has 2 5/5s. Ancient Award is not too bad on this board.
Yeah. And you know he's loath to use his second Hex, right? Because of the Tyrion.
Right.
Let me think.
Or he can hold high roll a Torlin Primalist.
Good old Torlin Primalist. Doom. Clear the board, draw cards. But yeah, Osric's coming out trying to get second Hex, I imagine. If you get that, that's going to be great. Paladin might actually just outvalue the Shaman.
Just needed a dirty rat off. No big deal.
Yeah, if you had N'Zoth right now, BunnyHoppor would make a lot of white eyes.
Even more 10-10s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does seem like a even bigger of a deal now than even when it happened, now that you mentioned it.
Mm-hmm. How many white eyes have died so far? I think this is the third white eyes that's about to die.
Right. So there'd be 6 10-10s in the deck if you play those all.
And plus, you know, it brings back 3 5/5s on the field that all have taunt. That's also a big deal.
Just a little bit. It's almost hard to count, you know, who has more value here, right? I guess BunnyHoppor does, just by a little bit.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like he's committing the thing from below's. Neither of the thing from below's hit the table, being super patient still. Feels like he's in the driver's seat.
He is putting a little bit of pressure on, right? And DrHippi doesn't want to use Lay on Hands because he doesn't have the space for it. He's already used Forbidden Healing to get at pack value. And so now he wants the value, but he's facing, again, a little bit of pressure. So he doesn't, I don't know if he has time, potentially, to just throw out like a Karen, for instance.
Looks like Wild Pyromancer Pack Karen. Something like that.
Let me think.
He could just Karen pack if he wants another card. But looks like he's gonna go for the pack first. 3 cards. 3-card pack. I want my money back. Oh.
If he plays Karen first, then he overdraws from his deck. On average, a card from your deck's probably higher value than a card from a pack, especially with Tyrion remaining and only like 7 cards left. So he does not want to overdraw Tyrion. That's why he sequences it this way, getting only 3 cards from the pack rather than 4.
He also has a quality too, which is again another big deal.
Yeah. There's some big ticket items remaining in his deck for sure. But yeah, he feels safe enough because there hasn't been any burst demonstrated from BunnyHoppor's Shaman deck, so he feels like he can take this slower line, doesn't have to heal, can get out Karen, which is an extremely slow minion. Your opponent only has 1 Hex remaining, so maybe they can't deal with it, and you get N'Zoth value.
It's a nice milligun, right? Because he only gets the 3 cards, but at the same time he's able to get the Karen out with a slight bit of board presence here with the Pyromancer, and he's able to start using his pack right now. Whereas if he waited forever to use his pack, perhaps he never gets a chance to use it.
Mm-hmm. This Shadow Visions is pretty cool too. That can pull out inequality.
Probably almost guaranteed pulls out inequality at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna need that equality, perhaps right now. Though there is a Tyrion. And the question here is, does DrHippi just throw that out there?
Well, that seems like a scary proposition. There's a little bit of pressure on the table that he's staring at.
Just a bit.
One of those minions say 10.
And it's a 10 next to a 10.
Yeah. So I imagine he's going to Shadow Visions into equality, Wild Pyro equality this board.
It is pretty much guaranteed. I can't imagine there's more. And it's like, even if it isn't guaranteed, it's very, very high percentage.
Yeah, exactly. There's been most of the Paladin spells already played, and Paladin's not even a class that runs too many spells.
Giant Mastodon doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it just dies on board and there's no way to deal the remaining 4 damage. I suppose with Cairn, but your opponent could remove the Cairn. It looks like DrHippi's perhaps having some connection trouble, which would be very sad.
He has a full board clear right here, and he leaves him with a 4/5. His opponent has a fairly weak reload. There's definitely no decisive winner at this time.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. I wonder what the ruling's going to be.
I have no idea. We will consult the admin and get back to you. And meanwhile, that was a crazy game of Hearthstone, though.
Yeah.
Like, the Dirty Rat pulled the N'Zoth, which allowed DrHippi to kind of change his game plan from being the guy that was the aggressor, and he didn't have to pressure out his opponent and instead could go the value line of play. And he was able to be even Youthful Brewmastering Elise to get additional packs. He had another pack in his deck, too, beyond that first Elise pack. So there was heaps of value still in there.
Yeah, one of the few situations you're going to find that the N'Zoth Paladin in this particular matchup is going to have more value, especially without the Stonehill Defenders. But we await the ruling.
And one of the things to note, though, going forward in that match that was going to be exciting to watch it break down is the Shaman was able to have way more cards in their deck because of all of the 10/10s they were adding, right?
Yeah.
So the additional minions that they added to their deck made it so they would hit fatigue a lot later. And that match looked like it could have went all the way to fatigue because 2 volcanoes to try and slow down the Paladin's threats could have really put a stop to things.
Yeah, definitely. The one of the biggest things that was going in DrHippi's favor was there was no Hex. So if he decided to ever just throw it on a Tyrion, then there was no way to deal with it, and that means 2 Tyrions. That means basically game over. You know, Volcano's not going to stop you from, again, getting Ashbringered in the face.
Well, he could have drawn the second Hex. He had only played 1 the whole game, yeah. And the deck size was actually a fairly medium deck size because he had added so many 10/10s to his deck. So he lowered his odds of top decking the Hex due to the increase in the amount of 10/10s.
Yeah, if I were to pick someone who was slightly favored there, I would say DrHippi just by a hair. That's because there's too much stuff. I mean, even with the volcanoes, right? You put a rag on the board, and he feels pressured to volcano that because you don't want to take 8 damage every turn. You play another rag. Actually, he already played 1 rag, didn't he? But you play the giant Mastodon. Then you play, maybe you play Tyrion somewhere in there. Maybe he doesn't have the Hex. Even if he does, you play N'Zoth, and N'Zoth has a lot of value as well.
He did have a lot of big things, and his opponent had not very many big things. But he was
Storm Guardians. He
didn't have him in his hand currently, but he was top decking Storm Guardians almost every turn at that point of the game.
Yeah,
that would have been a fun one to see how it breaks down, man.
Yeah, I really kind of want to see that. This is really unfortunate.
Yeah. Up next, we're going to be having Nyria versus Tice when we figure out what's happening with that game. Hear back from the players. I don't think we've heard back from DrHippi yet with the connection issues. But Nyria versus Tice. What have they played in recently? They've been kind of... I know Tice he went to a tournament in China, I think, recently, didn't he?
Is he not playing in the EU versus Yen?
No, he got invited, but
oh, right.
He's like too busy doing some stuff and didn't end up going to that one. Yeah, Colento's playing though, if that meme's still alive.
Just hanging on by a thread there.
And Nyria though, what has he played in recently? What's the last event? He's like a good player, and I always see him at high ranks on ladder. But
well, he played in the HCT Winter.
HCT Winter. All right, how do you do there?
I think he got top 8.
Top 8, not bad.
Well, just 1 round short of going to World Championships, but yeah.
Just 1 round short. And I know Team Liquid did very well in the, what was that recent thing? The ESL Team Legendary Series thing.
Right.
Kind of like HGG, but they had the open mics the whole time. That tournament, Team Liquid did really well in it. The Trinity Series, yeah, that's what that was called. He was crushing it there, really helping carry the team.
To finish out our day, we have Nyman versus Frozen, followed by DrHippi versus Tice, and then Nyria versus BunnyHoppor. So a lot of Group A matches here. Again, just to reiterate, the way that these groups work, the top two from each group, Group A and Group B, Group B being filled with a bunch of great players as well, obviously. Top two players from each group go to the offline finals in Kyiv. And then only one more player, as we do take a look at the groups here.
Right.
See, I wasn't lying. Both groups are pretty good. The third and fourth players from each group, they battle it out, the 4 players total, for the last spot. And so it's going to be 5 players from the world and 3 players from China. By the way, remember when we cast with Snowkiss in EU versus CN last year?
Yeah.
She's actually one of the 8 players remaining for the Chinese side.
So she might make it.
Yeah, 3 out of 8 chance if you think everyone has the same odds. But yeah, taking a look at those groups, we don't have the win-loss for DrHippi and BunnyHoppor, so I assume that's not decided quite yet.
We have a status update on that situation, in fact. We are going to wait 5 minutes to see if DrHippi comes back. And if DrHippi does not come back, then we can't really communicate with him. And we've kind of got a show to run. So the admin will come to a decision.
Yep.
So connection problems are always a bummer. You hate to see that happen.
By the way, I want to take this moment to apologize. I'm not going to be saying any more cards because I totally slipped my mind that other players could be gaining advantage. So no more of that.
Right. So who's your favorite? Who do you think is going to win the whole group from either side? If you had to pick one name.
The entire tournament, or
No, who's going to win Group A? Who's going to win Group B? Pick a name.
Well, first and second place are the same thing essentially.
No. Who's going to get first in the group?
First in the group. This is kind of tough. I mean, look at these players.
Yeah, it's pretty stacked.
He's kind of just like picking a name out of a hat at this point. I'll go Frozen. American Pride. American Pride.
All right. Just because he's American.
Well, he's very good as well.
No, obviously, that's why he's here. But I mean, what sets him apart from the other names?
Because I feel like everyone else has been picked for one of these at some point. It's like, who do you think is going to win? It's like
What's you giving him a pity vote? That's awful. All right.
It just seems like they're all on the same level. I might as well give it to the person who hasn't had their name called out.
I think Nyria's going to take it, man. Nyria's been killing it in the Unguro meta lately. He's been doing a lot of work. So my vote for Group A, Nyria. I think he's a very solid player. Just good and quick at adapting to new metagames. And then on the other side of things, Pavel. You got to pick Pavel, right? Like, that guy, I've been casting him at EU versus CN. He plays almost flawlessly and went 7-0 with unfavored matchups every single round. So I expect him to do well. That guy has just thoroughly impressed me lately.
Did you get a chance to see Just Saying's like statistical breakdown of the top 8?
No, I did not. What is that?
He basically just looked at their lineups and statistically looked at who was likely to win. And I think he had like Pavel as a 45 to 55-ish like underdog in the first round because of the dex section. And I was thinking, you know what? I don't know. It's Pavel. Yeah. I don't think you can ever say that out.
Yeah, 2 of the guys in Group B, Pavel and Stansifka were both in that tournament. They both had unfavored lineups, I think, every single round of the tournament. And they both qualified to the top 8. Like, just monsters.
Mm.
Very scary people to play against for sure. And Stan Udachi has also impressed me a lot. Watching him in that tournament was pretty spectacular. Even in just the show match, watching him play Quest Giants Mage, like just off the wall decks that I can't imagine he's practiced too much, and just being able to see lines that were really in depth was really cool.
Plays a lot of Hearthstone.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
So like any strange situation that comes up, he just got it.
Just got it. But
I don't know. From Group B, you know what? Show almost qualified for HCT Winter. I'm gonna give it to Show.
Yeah, Show's good. Show's always at the top of the ladder, man. I every time I log into Hearthstone, you'll see Show in top 100 legend, if not less than top 100 legend. Like top 50 or whatever. It's always doing that.
Yeah, I think it's time for him to translate those ladder results into tournament results this time.
Yeah, he spends so much time streaming, just grinding out the stream. That, I don't know. I bet you if he focused on tournament play, he could be even better than he is now. Like, he's already amazing, and then imagine if he just quit streaming for a month and went really hard at tournaments. That guy, yeah, would be disgusting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I were in his shoes, I don't know if I could ever do that though.
Right. It's a lot of commitment into the unknown, the risk, the dream. I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Yeah. We're just waiting for Dr. Hippie. Dr. Hippie, don't die.
We are trying to see if Dr. Hippie is alive. Internet connection has been down. There is no life without no internet.
Dr. Hippie. Just
he needs a doctor.
Shoot up 2 flares or do something if you're alive. How do you communicate without the internet?
I don't know.
Just send us a message if your internet's okay. It's like, wait a second.
Doesn't he have a phone or something? Does anyone have Dr. Hippie's phone number? Like, get him to an internet cafe. Come on. It's 2017, buddy.
Oh, man. All right, so what are you piloting these days? Firebat, what's your favorite?
What is my favorite deck to pilot? The last deck I played was N'Zoth Shaman and Cthulhu Druid. So
nice.
I'm really going and grain with the metagame. You know, really piloting that well. But what's up?
So when I asked you, when BunnyHoppor took out the N'Zoth Shaman, you're like, I got this.
Yeah. So we are unable to reach Dr. Hippie. He's been trying through all communications necessary, and we can't get a hold of him. So BunnyHoppor is going to take the win 3-2 over Dr. Hippie. And we are going to go to a quick break while we get the players ready for the next match. It is going to be Tice versus Nyria. 2 really, really strong players. Can't wait to see how it breaks out.